Hey everybody, welcome back. Spilled Milk, Ask Me Anything, weekend edition. It's just been a crazy travel time. So rather than with the last weekend with the Beard Awards and then I had to fly, it's a crazy long story. But anyway, hence the strange way in which our offerings to you rolled out this week. But let's just get right to it with great questions, and hopefully next week we're back on schedule. Ramsey writes, I'm not surprised to see the Beard Award judges rejecting European or westernized flavors in favor of Asian countries. Well, that's what they did this year, which I think is really cool. What's your favorite Filipino dish? Oh my God. That's like, what's your favorite French food? I mean, just like it's an overwhelming question. Look, there are adobos that make my heart sing, real, true, lechon from Cebu, or Cebu style lechon here in America. And there are a lot of places that specialize in it and do it really well, especially just across the river from New York City, in New Jersey. Or outside of San Diego, pockets of very large Filipino populations. Just down in Maryland, just outside of DC, same thing. So I love those dishes, but I am partial, and it's not because there's a little bit of blood in it to thicken it, but dinuguan is such a complex, beautiful stew. I absolutely love it. From a street food standpoint, and I have a great recipe for it on my website, and this is not some kind of ridiculous plug, but it's just, I found a really great, perfect way to do the dish, are those sweet potato and shrimp fritters that every time I see them, I sort of have to stop. And now the minute I've said that, I'm like, the perfect lumpia, the perfect one, I can eat like 5,000 of. Right? So Filipino food is vast, wide, complex, and it's hard to pick just one. And then Ramsey also goes on, or Korean, Japanese, Vietnamese, or other Asian countries. I mean, I would literally be here all day long. Having spent so much time in those parts of the world and so much time eating that food here in America, maybe I'll start to do some roundups of where in different cities I go for those types of things. So great question, and certainly start with all of those Beard Award winners, right? I mean, you've got 7 or 8 great restaurants to go to. Denise writes, while in our beautiful city this week, you're going to make the Dead show at Wrigley Field at the end of the week. No, it is the end of the week. And I had tickets. My buddy had tickets for 2 shows for me, and I had to say no because I have a friend's funeral memorial and a whole bunch of other stuff here at home, so I couldn't go. And I heard the shows were great. Deborah writes, love the Billy Bee recipe, but my husband is not a curry fan. Great, just delete it, add the cream, and instead of the curry powder, make your own spice blend. You can do that just with paprika and thyme and a little bit of chili is fantastic, right? Yeah, she wanted to know another spice or flavoring to use in the recipe. Jean writes regarding the Hong Kong style soy sauce noodles. By the way, this is amazing because all I want is one person to try to make this dish, and it really fills my heart up, so thank you. What brand and where did you get your wok? I have like 5 woks. I think the one I used in that recipe was a hex pan or hex something. And I have some fancy ones, and I have some very expensive handmade Japanese ones that are smaller that I really like when I'm cooking for 2. But the wok that I use most often is the $20 one that I bought at United Noodle almost 30 years ago. It's just a thin piece of beautiful carbon steel that I keep seasoned and works like a charm. In my opinion, those kind of woks are the best ones to learn on. The issue is some of them have a metal handle, so you always need a cloth in your hand, or some have a wooden handle that isn't really attached very well. So just be careful as it ages. You might just be careful as it ages. That's all. And don't put it in the dishwasher. Yeah. John writes, if you could combine your food stuff with disc golf practice rounds and disc reviews, your channel would be literal perfection. That's funny. But I kind of agree with you. Those are the two things I care about the most. Brian writes, what brand of olive oil do you use? I'm staring across. I keep my bottles of olive oil right next to my stove because I use olive oil so often. And I have two types of olive oil that you can't buy that come from different producers in Italy who I'm lucky enough to know, and every year they send me another jug. But for me, there are a couple different olive oils from Spain. Arbequina olives make an incredible olive oil. And so that's number one. Look for that. Number two, Moshi oil, Moshe, from my friend Lior at his company, and I will stick a link in the chat to that, or on this page or whatever. You know what I mean. His spice company is superb, but it's the olive oil that is just spectacular. And speaking of that, there's some really good Palestinian oils that are making their way here to America that are great. Some really great Moroccan olive oils. And I find those are really underrated, and you should look at them. But my favorite every day is the Moshi oil. Favorite 80s movie. Oh my God. I mean, there's like hundreds, right? The Coen brothers' first movie, I think, Blood Simple, 80s. Let's see. Scarface, 80s. Caddyshack, 80s. I'm trying to think. Wall Street was 80s. Say Anything was 80s. Raising Arizona was 80s. The Shining was 80s. Die Hard was 80s, right? I mean, Brazil, superb. That was 80s. I'm trying to remember. Oh, The Cook, the Thief, his wife and her lover, for obvious reasons. Sex Lies videotape. Raiders of the Lost Ark was 80s. Thin Blue Line was 80s. Stranger Than Paradise was 80s. Blade Runner was 80s. Blue Velvet, great movie. Raging Bull, let's not forget Marty Scorsese. And New York's own Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing, was 80s. So let's go with those. Hey, Andrew, the James Beard Awards are just around the corner. Well, they just ended. Sorry. My wife and I went last year, and such a fantastic experience. We're going back again this year. What are you most excited about at this year's awards celebration? Well, they already happened. But as someone who has consistently said for a long time, when we're rewarding excellence, we need to avoid a Western European bias. I still think we need to award excellence. But I have long stood over the course of my career for the last 30 years for the idea that, a great Thai restaurant like Anna Jack is comparable to it. Just because a place doesn't have Western service and tablecloths and Limoges china and 5 wine glasses at your table doesn't mean that the dining experience, the food, the totality of everything isn't superb. So seeing some of my favorite, Kasama, Kalaya, Anajak, seeing my friends, the Parks, win for Best Chef New York, because they really do go together like milk and cereal. Was really, really, really rewarding for me. That was my favorite part. Tony writes, probably not the first, but you said, yes, I know. I brain farted and, I said 1.2 billion for the federal budget instead of 1.2 trillion about my rounding error with how we fixed childhood hunger in America. In 2022, we actually spent 6.3 trillion, but a lot of that is because of our deficit issues. Here's the point. Whether it's the 1.3 or 1.6 trillion that was assigned, or the 6+ trillion that was actually spent, it just makes it more of a rounding error. In other words, the $17 billion that it takes to address how we feed kids in schools, and can do it 3 meals a day with fresh cooked healthy food, remains an outrage. And actually, the more money we spend on other things, the more of an outrage it becomes. I will try not to make those mistakes, but this is what you get with I'm sure one of those movies isn't an 80s movie. Anyway, love you all. See you next week.